Good morning everybody, and welcome to my channel, Landscaping with Alan. Today's topic, as you're probably aware, is on the subject of mini excavators in a landscaping setting. So many of you that are viewing this video today would have started out at a very young age, knee high to a grasshopper as they say, digging up plants in your mother or father's garden with a little toy digger that you got for your birthday or from Santa Claus, etc, etc. And you would fall in love with the idea of owning a piece of equipment like this at some stage. And unfortunately, as people will say, we never really grow up. We grow up all right, but the machines just get from toys to bigger and bigger and bigger. So the reason behind this video today is to try and help you, the viewer, to go through the process of coming from a company that has been hiring equipment for maybe a number of years and who is struggling maybe with the questions to ask, the right information, to move to the next level of owning a piece of equipment like what you see here on both sides of me. The landscaping industry, as you're all aware, varies in size from the one-man band, one-woman band, to equipment of that suitable size for that type of work, to companies out there that run multiple fleets. They take on industrial projects, you know, around a hotel or a school where they need larger equipment. And that obviously then leads on to this size of equipment, into the 3-ton excavator size. So we're going to cover that array of equipment from your micro excavator, 0.75 tons usually, up to your 2.8 ton, 3-ton machine, which covers the base range of equipment that most landscapers will use. Yes, you have your landscaping companies that do a little bit more civil side works and larger works, which will go into the 7-8 ton and even 13-14 ton machines, but that's for a later date, a different video entirely. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, I suppose, apart from the fact that do I need a mini excavator at all, apart from the fact that I'm happy hiring and yes, it's doing okay, you need to sit down and actually weigh up, number one, the cost of hire every year. So if you're in a position where your cost of hire is getting anywhere close to the repayments on a said piece of equipment, you're getting very close to the scenario where, yes, you should have your own piece of equipment rather than hiring in, for a number of reasons. Number one, invariably you're going to get that piece of equipment delivered to site, or you have to go collect it. And it may not be available when you want it, and it may have to go back because the hire company said you can only have it for 2 days, there's somebody else booked in for maybe on a Wednesday of the said week. And ultimately, it will not come with maybe the attachments that you would really like to have, and the work that you can get from that machine then is going to be quite limited across the spectrum of the work you're doing. So the other side of it then is, maybe this is a little bit of a side issue that people maybe look over or don't look at quite so often. And I see a lot of companies out there doing this type of work where they hire a piece of equipment, they land it on a job, they do as much work as they can with the machine on day 1, day 2, day 3 of the project, thinking that we're only going to hire this machine for 3 days, get the base work done, get the groundworks done, and then machine is gone, it's off hired, I've only had to pay X amount of money. But invariably through that project there's going to be lots of applications where you really could do with that piece of equipment. And you probably will have said and had the conversation with yourself, I could do with an excavator there for that little job, digging a few post holes or whatever, and you go, I'm not going to hire it, it's going to cost me X amount a day, and I rang the hire company, they actually don't have one until Wednesday or Friday and it's not suitable. So you'll get on the shovel, on the spade, the pick, the crowbar, you'll dig out the hole. Same with levelling a base or what have you. And that is, number one, is giving you a lot of hardship. It's labour intensive. you're wearing yourself out because you're not going to be as fit and able for the next part of the project the next day or into the second half of that day. So these are the little things that you need to run through your mind and look at the projects maybe over a period of time and say, well, I could have actually used that machine here this day and that day, and it would have saved me an awful lot of time. And the wet weather issue then, as you all know, crops up, where you end up doing work that you really shouldn't be doing because the machine is on hire. You rip out a lawn, you put in topsoil, and then the rain comes and makes a mess of that piece of ground. You haven't had the opportunity to finish off that lawn because you needed to put brick edging around it, or you had to build a retaining wall or put in a fence maybe, where you couldn't actually finish that lawn properly. Whereas if you had a mini digger at your disposal right through the project, you could hit that piece of ground at a later date and not leave it exposed to the elements to ruin the piece of ground on you. We've all seen the photographs of the site dugout, guys in the back corner laying out a patio and the whole site is a mud bath because they've had to just utilise the machine for a said period of time. Right, you've now ascertained that you need to buy an excavator. You've decided, you've looked at the figures, go talk to your accountant if you need to and see what the repayments going to be on a machine, you know, what the tax implications, what you can write off against tax, depreciation, all that, which is another side of this whole equation, that it actually, you know, can save you some money in a tax situation where the depreciation on the machine will help to balance the books when it comes to profit and loss and what have you. So speak to your accountant, see what they have to say. Sit down, do some figures. Look at what the machine is going to cost you to buy, whether it be new, second hand, and then look at what the payments per month is going to be on that machine. And then flip over a page and start writing down things like what kind of fuel you're going to need, what service, what maintenance you're going to have to run through that machine over its, you know, weekly or monthly period. So there will be a cost implication to all that. You then have to look at things like, have I got a way of transporting this vehicle, and also have I got somewhere to store this vehicle. Obviously these are things, up to now you may have had the machine delivered to site by a hire company. They would take it away, so you didn't have to worry about that side of things. Whereas now you have to say, if I buy a machine, I'm responsible for getting it from A to B. We'll look at that now again in a few minutes. So as I said, the range of machines we're going to cover is from micro excavator up to the larger machine. So let's just start with the micro excavator. So the brand that we have chosen here, and as you can see, this is a warts and all video where we have the machine just back off site. You can see the grease on it, you can see the muck on the tracks and on the bucket and what have you. Excuse me. This machine here is Whacker Newson is the brand, and that's the brand that we chose. And one of the very important things you need to look at when purchasing a machine excuse me, is the brand must go and coincide with obviously a company that's going to supply that to you, and the location of that company is very important to you. When this machine comes on site, you've purchased it and it's going to come with maybe 1, 2, 3 years warranty depending on the manufacturer, and something goes wrong with this machine. Accessibility to parts, the service that these companies provide, how many of vans have they on the road, how many technicians they have to send out to you to get you going again is very, very important. In the case of a hire company, bear in mind, if you're hiring a vehicle or a machine and it breaks down, you sometimes will be afforded the off-hire option where the machine will be downtimed. You're not paying for that machine to sit there. But when you have a machine that's owned by you, whether it be paid outright or on a finance scheme, every minute of every day that machine is costing you money, whether it's been used or not used. And unfortunately when it breaks down, and these things do from time to time, something goes wrong, whether it be misuse by the operator or something just technically breaks down on a machine, and that's when you want it the most, when it's in use and you're going to be looking at this machine parked up. You need to know that that company that you've bought the machine from has all the parts to back up the knowledge to go get that machine fixed for you very quickly. I have heard scary stories of machines being laid up for weeks because parts weren't available. The company in question was only new into the business, didn't really know what they were at, and the parts trail was just very, very bad. So your higher end machine the higher end dealers tend to have a very good setup, and you're perfectly within your rights to ask these questions when looking at a machine. They'll openly show you what their backup is. They may even give you contact details of other customers that have been dealing with them for a while. And again, make these calls, ask these questions. So let's just talk about your micro excavator. The first thing then, let's take the example of the landscaper with 1, 2 people in the business. And you're working in your urban setting. So you're in your small type gardens where access to these gardens is going to be very, very tight. That's where the micro excavator comes in. A couple of the key features that will come on a micro excavator. The first thing is, obviously, you need to get the spec on the machine, which will be given to you by the company you've looked at, said brand, Wacker Newson, Kubota, Tegahuchi, Bobcat, whoever it may be. You're looking at their brand, and you'll get the spec sheet on that machine, and it will tell you the actual operating width of the machine. So you need to turn around and say to yourself, right, the last 3 jobs we have completed, I have access 1 metre, 800 mils, 900 mils, whatever it may be. You need to make sure the machine you're going to purchase in a micro setting is going to fit through those areas. You're never going to have a situation that you will always have a machine to fit into every garden. There's always going to be situations where you're going through a house, or the access could be just physically just barely wide enough to fit a wheelbarrow through. So in that situation, you know, micro excavator isn't even going to be the answer. But you have to weigh up the odds and say, if I buy this brand of machine, service, everything is good company, good brand, but the machine is 820 mils, but the other machine that is equally as good with all the other details, maybe a little bit narrower, it could be only 50 mil, that might get you into more gardens. And that's what you want at the end of the day, because the investment you've made needs to be rewarded with the work it can do. So most of the brands, the top brands anyhow that I've seen, have what is known as expanding tracks. So what that basically means is, if you look down here, this is your undercarriage of your machine, and this is your track width. These tracks on this machine are in their fully extended position right now. So they're in their widest position, which gives the machine a very good stance, makes it very, well, as stable as physically possible on uneven ground, working over slopes, etc. And if you look down here very carefully, and I'm just going to go grab the GoPro camera for a second, as this will give a close-up of this here. Down here, if you can see this, at the moment the track is wider than the blade. And what this basically means is that on this machine here, if I pop this around, I now have extended my blade out to match the width of the track. So that piece there, which is about 75-80 mil wide, is how much the track will move in. So again, I can pop that back. By a little process of operating the machine, I can move this track back in, which will line up with this blade here, which brings this machine down to a much narrower width. And that is what will tidy that machine up enough for that to enter into a narrow property, onto the back of a truck, or into the back of your van, where you have narrow confined space in that situation, or into your storage locker, or your storage facility, where you may have to, you know, the tidier the better. So that's a really cool feature on a lot of machines. That does extend from your micro digger into your maybe 1 ton, and excuse me now, I have seen some 1.2, maybe 1.5 tons with the same facility. So that's a feature that you should look out for. You will have brands out there that won't offer that feature. They will have many other good features, but that's one thing they won't have. They tend to be quite cheap machines, cheap in price and cheap in quality of build, and you know, there's a reason to why they're cheap in price. And when you don't have that facility on a machine, yes, it might have a narrower stance, but 9 times out of 10 it'll make a middle ground, and it won't be either, and you won't get into the property you want to get in, and it doesn't make the machine quite as stable operating in, you know, rough terrain, which invariably is the kind of work and the ground conditions we're working on. We're never, very seldom on tarmac, very seldom on concrete. You're a lot of time in soft ground, working in between shrubs, soft lawns, on embankments, etc, etc. Another feature to look out for on these machines is what's known here as a king post, where the machine arm, as you can see, in this machine's case here, the machine arm is running in line, straight line with the machine's undercarriage. And on this, on our body structure, on this side machine here, you can see I have pivoted the arm across to work at an angle. That feature is very important, especially on a micro excavator, as it does on larger excavators. But you will see scenarios where you're backed into a corner of a house, right in the very corner. You might have to dig around the foundation of a house. You might have to dig around maybe an oil tank. You're grading a little footpath out around the conservatory or whatever, and you might have a wall on both sides of you. So your area along both sides could be very, very tight, and you just don't have the access. And the feature to buckle the arm left, right is very, very good. Sometimes, and I have been in this scenario quite often, where the actual body of the machine will have to stay in a straight line with the undercarriage, but the arm of the machine has to do the work left and right, which any you're familiar with your JCB 3CX type machine, a 180 machine, will mean that the arm will only move left and right. And that can be done on these machines once you have this facility on it. The next thing then, and I'm going to just grab the GoPro again, is it's quite a topical question. Some people will argue the case that no, it's not the right way to go, but this is just something that I've had the experience of over the last couple of years and had, you know, some issues with, and I do believe it is worthwhile considering this when purchasing a machine. So we'll just jump up onto the machine here now. So when you're sitting on the machine here, what you'll notice is you're going to have joysticks in front of you here, which are what the machine operates with. These are the levers that operate the boom of the machine, spinning the machine around, etc. Now, these are, some people call these, you know, pilot control, some people call them different things, but at the end of the day, you've got two options. In some operations of some machines will give two different specs. One is the levers in front of you, like here, and the second option gives you a joystick just where my hand is positioned on the left and right hand side of the machine. They are what's known as servo controls, which are a more sophisticated, they do offer a better control of the machine, and it is quite valuable when you're doing a lot of work. It gives a lovely smooth operation to the machine, whereas with these type of levers here, just a little bit less refined. The reason why I'm paying special attention to this is that, again, I'll just jump off the machine here. If you look down along the width of the machine, so this being the widest part of the machine here, this is the area where, when travelling through a narrow access way, is going to rub against walls, you know, windowsills, downpipes. You're going to be very, very close to those objects. If you have a control lever on the very outside of the machine here, which, as you can see, there's not much room between the seat and the edge of the machine, that's where this unit has to fit. I have had plenty of experience where going into very confined spaces and literally having no room at all. And what I'd be afraid of is that with that joystick, it could get caught in things like downpipes, branches of maybe trees from a boundary hedgerow, and you're leaving yourself open to the possibility of that lever getting caught in a branch or a tree going through, because your hand is going to be on the joysticks, which are in here, to control the forward motion of the machine, or backwards, whichever way you're travelling. So bear in mind that those joysticks, servo controls, the outside of the machine, yes, they're very, very good. They make the machine much, as I say, smoother to operate, but they do come with that scenario. And just think back of a site where you've been in, that is not a, you know, a good scenario to be in. I would much prefer to have those levers on the machine, but trust me when I say this, there's been far too many opportunities where that machine went in and I had no room to spare, and I would have had a scenario where those levers would have been caught in, mainly hedgerows would be the example. And if that lever gets caught in a branch or a tree, it's going to cast the machine left or right, and you're going to run into a scenario where damage is going to be done to the house or the fence or something like that, or maybe even to yourself. So that's something that you really need to to consider. So that's more or less the features that are on a micro excavator. What you will notice by looking at the two machines here in front of me today, this machine here obviously doesn't have a cab, obviously that one does, but what this is fitted with is a rollover protection system, a ROPS system. And the whole objective of this frame here, as you can see, it goes up and it also carries across the top of the machine, is it's not a disposable part. It shouldn't be taken off the machine and thrown away. What it's there for is, in the event of the machine turning over, this system structure is designed and been tested, by the way, that the machine will only come over and will land on the rollover protection system, and it should not obviously compact or dismantle to allow the machine to come over and roll over on top of you. So it's there for your protection and your health and safety. Far too many times I see people out there with this thing off their machine, working away. Yes, it's grand in a lovely flat setting, but you only have to go back on YouTube again and you will see the world of videos where these machines get turned over and people get badly hurt. And it only takes one accident and game over, and you, the operator who has invested in a piece of machinery, taking off something that's there to protect you, will get hurt. That's not a very good scenario to be in. So there's lots of other little features that will be offered to you when looking at machines, but that's the general run of things that you need to look at. You maybe get into more the technical side of things. You might want to look at the engine, see what type of an engine it is. There are some very good engines out there. Your Yanmar engine, which this machine comes with, you have got a Kubota engine in this machine here. They tend to be very, very good machine engines, and you will find those in a wide range. Yanmar engines are in a lot of machines. Perkins engines are another very good engine. You don't see them in the smaller machines so much, but they are out there as well. They can be in some of the larger size machines. So, as I've said, the range varies from your micro excavator. You go through your 1 ton machine, which can have a cab or a canopy, and then we move across then into your larger machine then, which is your 2.8 ton in this case, Kubota. So the features that you're going to look at with a machine like this is, obviously you've got an enclosed cab, which makes, very comfortable. You're going to have a scenario where you're going to have a lot more lights on the machine. You've got, in this case of this machine here, for moving back and forwards, you've got a lovely set of pedals for tracking backwards and forwards. You're going to have more information displayed. You're going to have temperatures and fuel gauges and things like that on display, where on the smaller machines you will just get a little bit more primitive information because it's usually in the form of a warning sensor or something like that, just because the size of the machine doesn't warrant or doesn't have enough room to put those attachments and instruments on. You will have things like air conditioning. Obviously you'll have a radio, and then it's great because on a wet day you can go and do some work that will allow to be done on a wet day, but at least you can do it in a closed cab. The other things you need to look at when you're into these size machines here is obviously storage. Access then is going to be required to be a lot wider. You're into your 4.5 to 5 foot width with a machine like this. Obviously then attachments and things like that go for both machines will be greater on a machine of this size. So again, that size of machine comes with a couple of different options that are quite important to note in this conversation. On the micro excavator, the configuration of the machine is as what you see there. They don't usually change that much from that. But on a larger machine, into your 1.5 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton machines, you're going to have the option to have a standard configuration machine, which is what this machine here is, where the back of the machine has a large weight block. It's almost the length of the undercarriage, and that will give you a lot more stability when carrying heavy attachments on the front, like what you see here with the Encon tilt rotator and a large bucket. For flail operations, post hole diggers, things like that, you will find that the machine will be a little bit more on the unstable side, and this solid counterweight with the full conventional back end is very important. The other option to this size of machine is an option that's called zero tail swing. And what that gives you is the back of the machine is compacted in an awful lot smaller. The weight block is pushed in. The engine sometimes can be, configured, maybe put out to one side of the machine rather than in the back. And what that does is, it basically means that when you slew the machine around in a 360 fashion, the back of the machine will not extend out past the tracks. So it stays within the confines of the undercarriage of the machine. So if you're in a narrow alleyway working up against the building, when you rotate around, the back of the machine will stay within the track circumference and won't hit the wall. So that gives you a very, very, very more manoeuvrable scenario with these machines. Whereas the more conventional machine, the undercarriage will come out and will strike the wall a lot easier. So there are two options that you need to look at when you're discussing that size of a machine. I had a scenario recently where a guy looked at a machine, the same configuration as exactly what you're looking at here, a Komodo KX030, but he decided to go for the U25 model, which is smaller and is zero tail swing, and that suited him better. I'm lucky enough to have both options in machines, so if that machine can't fit in or is in a very tight area, I have the luxury of going home, bringing back the small machine, or it could already be on site, and use that machine for confined areas and use the larger machine in the wide open areas. You may not have the same luxury. Now we've discussed both options and a few little technical things about the machines running through. The next thing we're going to talk about is the transport of these vehicles. So you, the landscaper, depending on the size of operation you run, you may have one vehicle, two vehicles, three vehicles, etc. A machine of this size here weighs in and around the 0.75 tons range. Some of them can go up to 1 tons, some of them go down to maybe 6, 0.5 tons, depending on the make and model. You need to ascertain the weight of that machine by, number one, looking at the steel plate on the front of the machine that will tell you that, or it will also be in the spec sheet that will be given to you by the dealer. And that will very simply say to you operating weight of that machine. And that's the weight that you have to work out. Can your vehicle either transport it on the back of the vehicle or in the vehicle? Or if not, if I have to buy a trailer to bring this machine around, what type of trailer? And then the implications with that in relation to insurance and driving licence. So, take it back down to your micro excavator size. Some people will have an open back truck, let it be your Ford Transit or your Isuzu NPR, Mitsubishi Canter, that type of machine. A simple set of aluminium ramps with the correct procedure to load that onto a vehicle, easily transported up onto the truck, tied down, and away you go. Can be brought from site to site. If you don't have maybe that type of a vehicle, and you decide you may have a tail lift on the vehicle, so that would not operate properly with ramps, you might decide you're going to use your transit type van, your boxed in type scenario, Red Alt Master or whatever type of van like that, and you may say, I'm going to buy a trailer. You need to go out and buy a trailer that can carry 1 ton, 0.75 tons, whatever it may be. So again, you need to speak to the manufacturer of that trailer or the supplier to figure out the right machine spec, right trailer spec to go with what you've just what you're hoping to tow around. The implications of that then are, do you have a licence to tow that vehicle behind, or that trailer behind your own vehicle, and is the vehicle's towing capacity suitable as well. So they are things you need to go and look at and ascertain all this information to make the right judgment on whether you can tow this vehicle safely on a trailer behind the vehicle that you are driving. If not, you're going to be in a scenario of having to change a vehicle, upgrade or whatever way it may be, or add another vehicle to the fleet so that you can transport these pieces of equipment around. Having said that, the micro excavator, obviously being small, is one of the more easy machines to transport. When we look at a machine of this size here, we're into a total different ball game. Most of your, we call it, twin axle plant trailers or twin axle flatbed trailers, the larger of those trailers will have a 3.5 ton carrying capacity, but that includes the weight of the trailer. Now these are only guidelines, these are only, there's always scenarios that are different, and each manufacturer is different. But you will have your larger type trailer at 3.5 tons, but that includes the weight of the trailer. So if you have a plant trailer stamped at 3.5 ton that weighs in at 1 ton, now your towing capacity is only 2.5 tons. This machine here weighs 2.8 tons. So you cannot legally transport that on that trailer because your capacity is over. You're overweight. The other bit of a twist in this calculation you have to look at is your towing vehicle. What I've just said has to be in relation to the vehicle that's pulling that trailer. You can put that trailer behind various makes and models and sizes of towing vehicles, that trailer I should say, and the capacity will be altered by the towing vehicle. So these are all things you need to look at. So with the like of this machine here, when you're into your 2.8 ton machine, you have to look at, you're definitely into your HGV type vehicle, so your 7.5 ton, 10 ton, 12, 14 ton vehicle, where this machine can be put up on the back of, or in the case of some of those larger vehicles with the proper trailer behind it, it can be train weighted where the two vehicles combined together, towing vehicle and trailer, can carry something like this, into your 2.8, 3 ton machine. But obviously it has to be equipped with trailer brakes, all the right spec to suit a HGV vehicle. So the implications to that scenario are that your licence then has to be HGV rated, you're into a bigger truck, your cost of running that vehicle, wear and tear, are going to be more significant than what you may have already ran. There's other implications with road safety, with tachograph. You may have, in our scenario over here, you may require to have a CPC, a driver competency certificate, and you may also need to have other different things as requirements by your insurance company. So bear that in mind, that yes, you might say let's run out and buy this size of vehicle, but you have to do the calculations as to, can you tow the vehicle, what trailer you're going to tow it on, and is this machine legally transportable in a trailer in the first scenario. I think that's enough on the transportation. We will do videos later on about safely getting these machines up onto trailers and how you properly tie them down. All manufacturers will have tie down points on all of these machines, and it's advised that you would use those tie down points and secure this machine to the trailer properly. It is an issue where you will see some people with a machine like this with one ratchet strap thrown up across it, tying it down. Not adequate. If you're stopped by the authorities, they want to see this machine tied down properly. End of story. So we'll look at that at a later date. Some of the other features that you will see, and it's one of the deciding factors on us purchasing this machine here, is the anti-theft system that it comes with. So we've, at this stage you've chose the size of the machine. You may have looked at 2 or 3 brands. You may have whittled it down to 2 preferred brands that you're going to get into a little bit more consultation with on price and delivery time, etc. But Kubota have a really cool feature on their larger size machines, and that's an anti-theft system where the key is chipped and only that key will start that machine. So any other Kubota key will not start that machine. A little tip there, I've had guys before contact me and ask me about purchasing a second-hand machine. They've looked at a Kubota, they like all the different options on it, and they say about the machine's spec and age and all this, that and the other. And the one thing I always say to them is make sure that the key that comes with the machine also has the what's known as the red key, which is the key that allows you to reprogram new keys if in the event of this getting lost. So there's a cost implication to that, just on a Kubota. There's other makes and models have their own. Some machines have a key fob that you have to dial in, you know, a pin code to start the machine, and they're also good options as well on safety aspects, you know. That leads on to the next topic then of attachments. We'll look at health and safety now again in a second as well on some of the other things, some safety checks, requirements that you must have to make your machine safe and worthy for use. When it comes to attachments, as we've said, your micro excavator there and your larger machine. Nowadays all of these machines will come with what's known as a quick attach, which basically means in the case of this machine here, we'll get it close in as well, you've got an attachment on the bottom of your machine here that allows for the bucket attachment, rake, whatever it may be, to be removed from the machine. Quite simply, remove a pin, drop off the bucket, and your attachment can be changed quite quickly. Whether you have an old machine or you're looking at a new machine, that's really is a very good attachment. It's something that you should not really bypass. It will speed up the operation of changing buckets quite often. I am a long time operating machines of various different sizes, and the one thing I will say to you about attachments is if you've gone out and spent somewhere in the region of 18,000 euros on a machine like this, or you've spent, you know, with all the attachments, this machine 55,000 euros, if you've spent money like that, there's no point in having one bucket on the end of it or two buckets and no attachments. That machine will only get, you'll only get the value from that machine if you have the range of attachments to go on it. Yes, you're not going to buy them all the first day, but I would definitely consider, once I've made the purchase, to be actively seeking new attachments along the way. In the case of this machine here, I think I have 12 attachments. On the smaller machine we have 5, maybe 6 attachments, and each attachment obviously has its own benefits and will speed up operations on site and will save, maybe in the case of the machine, wear and tear on the machine, which ultimately has a cost later on when it comes to maintenance on the machine. So if you have a quick look around here, we'll use the GoPro camera again. Attachments come in all shapes and sizes with varying different options for both sizes of machines. But in the case of a micro excavator, you're going to get different buckets, width, depth, size. You're going to get rock breaker attachments, maybe a grab attachment that will allow you to do various different tasks throughout the site. It will also give you an option maybe for an auger to drill out post holes. On the larger machine then, you are going to have a wider range of attachments. We went for the Encon tilt rotator, which you can see here, which has 2 options on it. We do have a quick attach on top, but we also have a quick attach down here. So we can remove this unit if we don't want it for a said operation. We can put the bucket directly on. So for in the case of a rock breaker, we'd remove that item. So that just gives a lot of options, and it gives the machine much more versatility. You can see here in the background we have a grab attachment, very good for your green waste, large boulders. You know, if you do a lot of site reclamation or clearing out of gardens where you've got a lot of scrub and different things. You can separate waste quite easily, place it into different skips. If you're taking out a lot of large trees, pick the trees up, chainsaw, lop them into sections, and you're not down on the dirt in the ground. Again, saving on time and energy. So attachments come in all, as I say, all shapes and sizes. One of the best attachments, and I always say to people when they're buying a micro excavator, is this guy here. And it's a good attachment on any machine really, but if you can have a quick look at it here, this is what's known as a ripper tooth attachment. So what that basically does is, when you again look at your spec sheet on your machine, you will see what's known as the digging force or the breakout force of the operation of that machine. What that basically means is, at this point down here, at the bottom of your dipper arm, when that piece of attachment strikes the ground at this point right here, now not down here, up here at the top, when that strikes the ground, the force that machine can impact on the ground. Now, when you change your attachments and you put on things like quick attaches, that moves the breakout force point further away, moves it down closer or further away from the hinge point. That then lessens or reduces down the breakout force of that machine. Now, as you can imagine, if we're talking about a machine of that size and you add on 50 mil, the breakout force won't be as diminished as much as it will on a machine like this, because the breakout force will be less on this machine in the first scenario. So what you have to do is consider that when you go into a garden, and the perfect example is either a big concrete post, maybe a H post or something like that you have to remove, or a tree stump. You're in a garden, tree stump in the middle of a patio, or it's going down to the middle of a wall, or whatever it may be, and out it has to come. Yes, you can bring in, your stump grinders, and that might be okay, it might be a simple way of solving the problem, but you've invested in this machine and you want to get value out of it. So, I'll just pick this up again and let you see. So this machine, or this attachment here that goes on your machine, is a ripper tooth. Now, what you're doing with this piece of equipment is, the tip on that machine, or this attachment here, on the end of your machine, is only going to be, 40, 50 mil wide, versus the bucket on this machine here at 300 mils wide. So now you can see that the breakout force, compounded down to 20, 30 mil, is going to be way better force through the ground than it is when you have a 300 mil wide bucket. So if you're finding that maybe just a little bit hard to understand, simply go outside, go into the ground, into the garden, or into a bucket of sand, or onto the beach, wherever you may be, and pull a piece of rebar through the ground, or try pull a piece of 6x2 through the ground, which is going to be easier. So you personally are going to exert more pressure to that narrow bar and force it through the ground as you are with the wider attachment. So you are maximising the power that you're getting from your machine into the ground with that attachment. So your micro excavator will just become that little bit stronger and will force the tree stump out of the ground. It's very good for sawing through roots, because again, you're putting a lot of force on a narrow point. You can rip through the roots and you can seesaw and get that out of the ground. So that's a very, very worthwhile attachment. Another very good attachment, and this is one we made ourselves years ago, is a rake bucket attachment. So for the landscape gardener, raking off lawns, separating different types of materials, you can pick it up, give it a bit of a shake, separate out large stones, roots, and make more use of some of the materials that you would ordinarily haul off a site. So that's definitely a worthwhile attachment to have on your machine. So that covers some of the attachments that are out there. You've got, as I said, a wide arrangement of different attachments to choose from. When you purchase a digger from your dealer, 9 times out of 10 you will have a quick attach option coming with the machine. A lot of machine companies now will just fit it as standard. and they will give you 3 bucket options or 3 bucket types that come with the machine. So that's your standard. So it's definitely worthwhile, you know, getting those attachments or those buckets with the machine, and then going on to add more attachments as time goes by, because they're the things that are going to get you more value for money out of that machine. A few little bits we need to cover on the safety and the operation of a machine. The first thing is that it's a requirement by law in most countries that you hold what's called a CSCS card, in this country anyhow. They're called different things, different places. Basically, it's a ticket to operate the machine. So you should hold a card like that. It's usually maybe a 1 or 2 day course. You can look it up in your area with safety companies, and they will have courses running at different times. And it's a worthwhile course to go on to learn about the safe operation of a machine and the little things that can go wrong, and a bit about maintenance, digging in the ground, and how to actually just run the machine properly. It talks about loads and different things, you know, underground services, all those types of things. It's a very, very worthwhile course to go on, and it does mean that you're competent in operating one of these machines. Your insurance company, no doubt, will, in some cases, will not cover you without that, so it's worth looking into. The other thing then is, obviously you need to have insurance on these machines, so that in the event of you hitting someone or doing damage to property or whatnot, you need to make sure that you have insurance to cover that accidental damage on that machine. Obviously you have to cover it for fire and theft and things like that. When it comes to a finance company anyhow, they will expect you to have proper insurance to cover that in case of it being taken on you and the machine has to be replaced or whatever. A few other little safety things that you need to look at. As we've already said, you've got a rollover protection system on the smaller machine. In the case of a cab machine, this cab actually is a rollover protection system as well. It is designed, engineered, tested, so that if the machine turns over, it's fit to take the weight of the machine as it rolls over and will stop the cab imploding in on top of you or rolling 360 degrees over and doing more harm to you. So just to be aware of that, that is also the same as your rollover protection system on your smaller machine. Obviously you have things like mirrors. In the case of the larger machine, you will be required in some cases to have what's known as either a Cyclops mirror on the back of the machine so you can see behind you, or in this case here you will see we have a reversing camera. So just look around the back of the machine here and you might see the camera mounted on the back. So that basically means that when you're reversing backwards, you can see if somebody happened to be kneeled down tying their shoelaces, or if somebody was working laying curbing or a patio that you're reversing up, that you can actually see them behind. That leads on then to what is known as a GA1 cert. And as you'll see on this machine here, that's an example of a GA1 cert carried out by an independent company. They come out on site, they test your machine for its suitability, its worthiness to do what it's supposed to do, checks for oil leaks, whatever. And they will inspect that the camera is there, and if not, they'll require a Cyclops mirror. In the case of a machine like this, as the machine tracks back and forward, these machines are fitted with what's known as a motion alarm. So as you're tracking forward, it beeps. As you're tracking in reverse, it beeps also. You'll be familiar with that on most HGV vehicles. As you're reversing back, it will beep also. So when that company comes out, they check things like, is your quick attach safe? Does it have the proper locking mechanisms that the bucket can't fall off if something was to fail? They will check hydraulic lines. They will check for wear and tear. The machine has not gone very loose and sloppy where it could shear off or break. They will check all the safety features on the machine, that they work, the horn, the dead man switch that deactivates the levers for entering and leaving the machine. Your seat belt is checked. All of those things. You must have a flashing beacon on the machine, and they will go through all of those little things to ensure that the machine is running and is in safe working use, and that you or anybody around you is not going to get hurt by a fault on that machine. And that really covers, I suppose, the safety side of things, that what you're required to have to run a machine and the certification you must get on a machine. That certification, by the way, is done yearly. It's the same as an MOT on a vehicle or a DOE on a vehicle, where you have to have it done on a yearly basis. I think that more or less covers everything that I'd like to cover in this video. Obviously, if there's any more questions or you would like a little bit more advice, jump across to our Facebook page, like Landscaping with Alan. Send us a message. We'll do our best to get back to you and try and help you with your purchase. Other than that, I'd ask you, if you like what you've seen in this video and some of the other videos, find it of use, will you please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, hit the little bell also to receive more notifications to the next videos that will be coming along the way. And that's more or less it. I thank you very much for your time for watching this video. Look forward to seeing you again soon, and tune into the next video when it appears. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.